Hello again. I've Here's the Oloro deck. Got 10 games lined up for you. I'm going to play in reverse chronological order because as I was playing through the evening, I made some slight modification to the deck, ultimately which ended up being this. I added Amnesia to alongside Mind Twist, even though having both of them is may seem redundant. I think that having cards that individually just win the game is a good thing in a deck that can ramp as fast as this one can. In order to fit that in, I took out Condescend, which is a good early game counter to help you dig for mana, but mid to late game it gets pretty weak. Um, and I don't, of all the counters, it also doesn't go under Isochron Scepter, so I didn't mind cutting it too much. Um, Although it is a great card. So that said, let's see how these games play out. And like I said, I made that change, adding Amnesia in a little bit later in the evening, so we may see Condescend early on here. So in the first game, it's Oloro versus Oloro. I've got a hand that looks like a keeper to me. Going first, draw a counterspell, which is nice. So turn 2, there's the Condescend that would have been a Amnesia. And of course, right here, um, Condescend looks great, but because it's going to help me dig. But at the same time, would I have been in bad shape if that were actually Amnesia? Probably not. In fact, I probably would have been in pretty good shape because on my next turn I just would have copy artifact his talisman and then tithed on his turn and fixed my mana that way. But so anyway, I set it up with Brainstorm on top and ended up playing Chromatic Lantern there, saying go, tithing. And you can see how fast this deck can get mana, so yeah, it'd be nice to be able to just play, done go here, and then wait for him to make a move, counter it, and then crush him. But anyway, I'll have to do it the slightly harder way. So I go ahead and just fetch Mystical Teachings. I could have gone for Mind Twist here, and it would have done the same thing certainly. But I'll get it in a moment. I wanted to get Teachings first. And he bribes me, so that's fine. There's only a couple of targets, if you remember. There's Trinket Mage and Phyrexian Metamorph, and that's it. So he gets a top, puts it in his hand, and figuring that he was going to go get top or Soul Ring, I let him have the bribery there. And then now I tutor for Vampiric for Mind Twist, and that's the reason why I didn't get a Mystical for Teachings instead of just going straight for Twist. I wanted to get the Twist, but I wanted Teachings in the graveyard. So that way afterwards I'd be able to win. But since he's done me a favor of tapping out and has 0 artifact mana, I go ahead and just throw the orb down, and he gives up. So that works out fine there. So this next game where I'm playing against Riss the Irredeemable. He's irredeemably bad. We're going to see, I've got a terrible hand basically. It has no ramp and no draw. I find some draw, sort of, tax is draw, but I'll need something to go with it for it to really amount to much. So I get a card off my tax, which is cool. I paused the video there and might have lost track of what I was saying, but anyway, I think it was my opponent's turn. Yeah, so he just makes an elf warrior. And I can't really tax here again because, if I could, but I'd just be throwing the lands away. In the old days, people used to tax whenever they could. They would tax for the full amount and then just throw cards away and use it to thin their deck out. And in a deck where you have, say, back when this was in standard and you had 20 planes in your deck or something, that would made a lot of sense, a whole lot of sense. The last thing you wanted to do is be drawing more planes. But in Commander, I only run 6 basic lands in this deck. I run as far as few in Queen. Few? I run as few as 4 in Queen. And so you can't really, it's not really useful or valuable to tax away and throw away lands for some minuscule deck thinning when you've got an 84 card deck. Because then what you're doing is just destroying the potential. If I did that and he cast Armageddon, then I have no lands to go fetch afterwards. So anyway, carrying on. I play Oloro. Finally, my first spell, other than land tax, my first spell of the game is Oloro. It just shows you how like horribly slow this hand is. My opponent pacifisms it, so I don't counter that. Go ahead and draw a couple extra cards. Oloro continues to draw cards even while pacifism is in play. So my opponent plays Soul Tithe, which gives him an upkeep of 6 mana. Make some more creatures, and now is the time. So I fetch Rift, that takes care of the Tithe, the pacifism, and all the tokens plus his commander, and charge. And look at that. What an insane swing card Rift is. Anyway, so yeah, I just untap Mana Vault, go fetch myself a Mana Drain, smash. Of course, he had to discard 4 cards last turn as well. He plays Pacifism. I just let that happen because I'm more concerned with Soul Tithe. Don't care if my commander can't attack. I will keep drawing extra cards. He plays his commander, which is trash, so I don't care. He plays Soul Tithe, and then I was thinking about it. You know what? I'll just let my commander die and recast him. Not a big deal. Look how much mana I have at this point. Still not going to counter it. So I just let him go. And then, ooh, draw a Mind Twist. So let's go that route. Yeah, this is the other reason why I also want Amnesia in here. Because I'm running Rift. So Rift, like, the combo of Rift and a discard spell is so incredibly rewarding that if you have either one and a search card, you can intentionally play the whole game just like I did this game and just do nothing for a really long time and then just Rift and then untap and break them off with some discard. So you just play some random junk here. Of course, I top deck the Mind Twist here, although if so that worked out nicely, but it wouldn't have been hard to have fetched it earlier with the mystical teachings if I'd needed to. So I ended trying to cast Fact or Fiction. He sets me up this way, and I don't remember. I think I take this pile here and let this go because I'm holding Yawgmoth's Will, so I can will the Soul Ring back later. It just makes the will like more valuable. So recast my commander. I think no. I go fetch Terminus. That's right. So during my upkeep, I go ahead and Mystical Teachings for Mystical Tutor. I Mystical Tutor for Terminus, and then I go to my draw phase and draw and Terminus him. And now at this point, I've got a handful of counter spells, and including Force of Will. So I go ahead and just play the commander. I mean, what's he gonna do anyway? He could top deck his own Terminus or something, and I'll force it with Metamorph. But he gives up. So that was cool. So here I'm playing against, I'm going to have to speed these up a bit. We've gotten a little bit long. So first hand's a mulligan, second hand looks like a keeper. In fact, it's quite a powerful hand there. So basically, if you have card draw, if you have spells, you go get mana with your tutors early. If you have mana, you go get spells, card drawing. If you have both card drawing and spells, you go get counters to protect your position, or things like Mind Twist or Amnesia to just end the game. Here I've got card drawing, so I go get mana. So fetch my Crypt and get my well down. And my opponent, Imperial Seal, so I figured well is probably not long for the world. It's going to die soon. But I top deck Tutelage, so perfect. I'll just play that, and what's he going to do now? If he doesn't kill either one, I'm drawing 4 cards a turn. He's probably going to want to kill one of them. But he plays Crucible of Worlds. I don't understand that at all. So anyway, not for me to know, I guess. So go ahead and play Scroll Rack, Imperial Seal, and then I activate the Scroll Rack with 1 mana in my pool, getting the Soul Ring that I put there, and pass for the turn. I figured he's going to resolve Kalia, but with the amount of card drawing and mana I've got, I can bank on finding a solution before it matters. So here I think, are we going to glitch? This isn't right. Yeah. I had a remand in my hand, and I remanded Kalia back to his hand. This game's going to glitch out, and I didn't have time for it. But bottom line is I'm drawing 5 cards per turn, and at this point he's got very little in play, and it was a simple matter of winning that game there. It was no chore from that position. So here I was playing against Grand Arbiter, and this is definitely a keeper. Sucks that I'm going second though at that Glacial Fortress, and yeah, I've got Amnesia in this time. So he plays Darksteel Pendant? What in the heck is that doing in there? That's like strictly worse than Crystal Ball, and Crystal Ball is not really playable. Although it's kind of at that borderline between like almost playable. You could play it if you had nothing better, but you should have something better, kind of a deal. So anyway, I ramp out and put a Memory Lapse under his stick. I've got Mox Opal ready. I have Vampiric, Amnesia, and Shop. So what's going to happen is on his turn, he's going to do whatever he wants to do. This is kind of just like, sure, go ahead and kill it if you've got Oblivion Ring. I'm going to Vampiric Tutor in response, because it'll turn off Opal if he does kill it. And I'm going to go get myself a way to some artifact mana so that I can play Shop. Most likely artifact mana, so I can play Shop, Amnesia, and just dump truck his hand. And then from there, I'll have enough mana in play that to refill my hand, I'll just cast my commander and do it that way. But he just looks at the board state and totally gives up. So that works for me as well. Probably would have got, I don't know, Thran Dynamo, Gilded Lotus, probably Thran Dynamo, or something along those lines. So anyway, here I'm playing against Skullbriar, a card that's only good against creatureless decks, but we'll see how it fares against me. So I mulligan away a fairly slow hand, and he doesn't have turn 2 Skullbriar, so I wasteland his land. And then he misses a land drop. So he went for a risky keep, and he's being punished for it. Obviously, if he plays land, I'm going to strip mine it if it produces either green or black mana. If he doesn't, then the plan would be cast Satyr Brass, and then tap for 6, play Chalice for 3, and then tap it for Worn Power Stone. And then on the following turn, of course, I could cast Oloro, and what's his commander going to do at that point? But the Wasteland completely crushes him. He misses a land draw and gives up. I'm not sure why he was keeping that hand in the first place. That looked like a terrible hand for that deck there. His whole deck's about playing his commander on turn 2, and he didn't have a way to do that. It's probably a mulligan there. So here I'm playing against Sharam, and I have to like outplay him this game. Can't just power up and beat him that way. So he plays Aethersworn Canonist, but that guy's only semi good against me, since a lot of times I can play a spell on his turn and a spell on my turn, and of course I have artifacts as well that don't care about it. So he plays Orsov Signet here, and just play on and say go. And then just play a game of draw go for a little while. I have to watch out though, because any of his artifacts that I kill, his commander can get back. So end of his turn I go ahead and Mystical Teachings, which resolves for a mana drain. He has a window to cast whatever he wants right now, because even if I have Force of Will, I can't cast it due to the Canonist. He uses this opportunity to draw 2 cards. That's it. Okay, so we both have 7 cards. I mean, we both have, well, I've got 6 cards, he's got 7, but my 7th card is a land. He's got a Canonist, I guess he's up a card, but he's down a mana, so I'm okay with that. Do the Vindicate on his Signet. He tries to play a Spell Bomb, and I don't want that to resolve because of Teachings. The problem here is I really would have preferred not to mana drain, and would have preferred to Spell Crumple or Hinder it. I always play Hinder or Crumple first, actually, between the two, so I can hopefully get it back later. Anyway, but I only had 2 mana after the Vindicate, so the Vindicate may have been a misplay. It may have been a little bit early. However, I am forced to mana drain this if I want to keep my Mystical Teachings, which I do. I don't really want him to destroy my Teachings and draw a card. If you factor Teachings into the board state and the card count, I'm somewhere between even and ahead. So he plays Baleful Strix, and I get 1 mana and draw a Mox Opal, so I need some artifacts, so I go ahead and just clone the Strix and draw a Thran Dynamo. So I still have a counterspell ready to go. And then he plays Metamorph, and I was thinking about countering it. I mean, he's going to get a Thran Dynamo, but I'm a little low on cards here, and I figured I'll just let him have his mana now and deal with it later. So I'm going to close out his Sharam. He sends with this guy, and if I block, then my Mox Opal turns off and he can cast a spell. I don't really want to deal with that. Plus, this is holding off. My 1/1's holding off his 2/2s, so I just chill. Fetch this at the end of his tap land at the end of his turn, thinking it'll probably be safe enough. And then on my turn, I clone the Thran because I really want lots of mana to go with this Teachings, and it won't affect anything as far as Aethersworn Canonist goes. And then I go ahead and cast Vess. I know he can counter here, and if he does, I can't counter back because of the Aethersworn, but he doesn't have it. So now I can start attacking his hand and use the counters to keep him suppressed, win the game that way. So he discards a 9 casting cost card that I could have basically ended up helping him here. If he plays his commander, that thing will pop back out, and then all the artifacts are indestructible that he controls, and they become more difficult to deal with. I could still rift him Terminus or Karn, but it is more difficult at that point. There's a few other things I could do. Anyway, so on his turn he casts Sharam, and I just have to hope that he doesn't have a counter here. And he does not. Alright, so there's one problem solved. I just keep hitting his hand. And because I'm low on cards and I can't play spells. If I cast a counter spell on his turn, I can play no other spell. I go ahead and just cast Mystical Teachings right now on my turn. And I go fetch Factor Fiction. It was really debatable between Factor Fiction and like a tutor to get something like a permanent source of card drawing, for example, Staff or something along those lines. But I figured Fact, with 5 cards, is a really strong chance that I'll draw a search spell of some sort. Plus, I might get something to go with it, and so this will ultimately prove more powerful, I thought. So I went for Fact. Times like this is when it's nice to have Stroke of Genius in the deck, but I don't like that Stroke is not good except for when you're in situations like this, and I figure when I am in situations like this, Fact is enough to win the game anyway. And Mystical Teachings is always the first card that I go get because it represents 2 cards of my choice. So anyway, he plays a Consecrated Sphinx. That one I'm definitely going to have to counter. And I'm still chomping away at his hand, so he's down to 3 cards in hand. So my turn, I go ahead and cast Factor Fiction. And here's what I reveal. And in the face of this, for some strange reason, he concedes. I don't know if he thought I was going to take the Mind Twist pile and Mind Twist him, but if he did, then he forgot that I couldn't do that because I'm casting Factor Fiction on my turn. At least I couldn't do it now. And I'm out of gas, as far as counterspells go. But the funny thing is, if you put Mind Twist in one pile and 4 cards in the other, I would definitely take the Scroll Rack, which I could cast thanks to the Canonist, and then rack for 4 and look for another counter to just keep winning the game from the situation I'm in. Plus, Scroll Rack and Vess is a very powerful combo. At any rate, he scooped it up, and so we move on to the next game against Unfamiliar, playing Jaleva. This thing's kind of annoying. It's a little bit like Zur. It can just attack and win the game, but it's got more randomness to it, I guess because of the red. I don't really like the card very much, but if you are going to play those colors, I think that's probably the commander to play. I just question why you would bother playing those colors unless you just have a thing for. I mean, you get Vandal Blast from red, which is pretty powerful, of course. You could potentially use a few other artifact hosers depending on what you're doing. Like maybe if you're playing creatures, you could play the 1/3 who destroys artifacts for red Nicholas and a tap. He costs 3 mana to play. Viashino Heretic, you could play him. You could play stuff like you could even play a Gorilla Shaman to eat things like Mox Opals. Red would also get you access to like Terminate, for red-black. It gets you I guess long term you could play Cruel Ultimatum, but overall it seems a lot weaker than White, Mystical Tutor, Tithe, Swords to Plowshares, Land Tax. These are all just super powerful cards for way too cheap. Um, so anyway, back to the game. My opponent plays Ponder, and I was thinking, I could muddle that and just like hurt his tempo, and then I decide I'm going to lapse it instead. So that way, while he can recast it next turn, it really slows him down quite a bit. I almost end up regretting the decision to lapse it instead of muddle it. Um, so right here, I was also debating, like, do I play Mox Opal here, um, um, or what? I mean, since it'll turn on. And I was thinking, you know what? I will hold it because if he has, like, say, Hymn to Torok, Mox Opal's not the best card in my hand. Muddle probably is, or Relic once it gets going. So, like, it's actually around third. So if he had Hymn to Torok, I wanted to not leave, like, the two stronger cards in my hand. Plus, I didn't want to show him that if he destroyed one of my artifacts, he'd be destroying effectively two. I didn't want to tell him that, so I just kept it in my hand. And he plays Hall of the Bandit Lord, so his guy will come out with haste. That could be really bad news considering what this thing does, depending on what cards he hits. So I dig and find no counters at all, so I go ahead and play this. Now you see, if I had have muddled the Ponder, I could lapse his commander next turn, and then Mystical Tutor for a more permanent solution. But anyway, I didn't do that, so I go ahead and just get my Coalition Relic down and pass for the turn. And thankfully, well, he does decide to play it, so it exiles, this is a little weird, but it exiles two lands from his side of the board, a land and Staff and him from my side. These are things that it cannot cast when it attacks. And then it can cast a counterspell from me, disenchant from me, Far and Away from him, Curse of the Cabal from him. So counterspell's impossible for this thing to use. Disenchant's a pain in the butt. Far and Away, not a problem. Curse of the Cabal, pain in the butt. So you got two decent cards there. But while I couldn't lapse his commander, I can muddle his Curse of the Cabal. And the funny thing is, like, I would have been okay even if it had resolved. It would have taken me down to 4 permanents, but they would have been, very powerful permanents, and I would have been fine. However, I mean, if I can keep 4 permanents around, I'm going to. So we muddle this sucker, and then on my turn, get ready to draw some cards, and he just doesn't even bother. Just gives up, which is fine by me. I think I probably would have Mystical Tutored and tucked his commander, just so that he didn't disenchant my well. I was debating that or just Mind Twist him and let him have the well. But yeah, I think I would have gone for the tuck. Anyway, so here I'm playing Love Robot as the pilot again, using a Lazov deck. And I've got it's a it's a strong hand, but it really needs mana, and I am going first. And then suddenly my opponent's first turn Soul Ring makes this strong hand look a lot weaker, especially when he follows it up with Lightning Greaves. So I go and play a land. That's 2 turns in a row where I haven't drawn land, and I really don't want to have to use the sack land because I don't want to thin my deck. I don't want to pull more lands out of my deck. So I really need to hit a land here, and I do, thank goodness. Right on time, no discarding. Down comes Dark Tutelage. And I play this simply because he can't cast his commander here. And I am nervous about what he might cast with the Lightning Greaves. But, usually Lazov decks don't have a lot of creatures. He might have, like, Shadow Mage Infiltrator, which would suck. But then again, Dark Tutelage would keep up with that. So if he doesn't do anything, I mean, he was tapped out. And if I didn't cast Tutelage and I just sat on the counter and waited, that's really not going to get me into a game-winning spot in the long run. On the other hand, if he was playing a more threatening commander like Kalia the Vast or something, I would have not played the Tutelage. I would have just sat on the counterspell. to protect myself. So he fabricates and goes and gets Sword of Body and Mind, which makes, that the Lazov deck is probably the only deck that I would play Sword of Body and Mind in. It actually makes sense in that deck. Otherwise, that card's really kind of crappy. So I flip Jace and I drowned Catacombs, which is perfect. I hit a mana and just don't even bother playing Jace. Say go, because now I've got the play of Counterspell on his commander, or Fact or Fiction if he does nothing. He does something. So I was sitting here thinking, okay, I'm going to counterspell that, and then I realized, wait a minute, you know what? Who cares? It's a 3/3. What's it going to do to me? The sword in his hand is the threat, not the Lazov. So I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to Fact or Fiction in response, so that if I hit Force of Will, he might overvalue the Force, like stick Force in one pile and 4 cards in the other or something. I won't even Force of Will it if I get a Force of Will. But I flip this. What a sick pile. Well, Strip Mine, Sackline Land, and a Cryptic Command. Very nice. And it's so funny because at this point in the game, it is starting to feel like I might be winning. He definitely, up to this point, has felt like he was winning. But, so I look at this and I decide, you know what, I've got tutelage running. That Strip Mine and Cryptic Command is a very powerful pile. So I go and just take the 2 pile, which is really a 3 pile if I cast Cryptic. Plus, I'm going to have to discard next turn anyway if I took the other pile, so it really wasn't a 3-card pile because I'm going to have so many cards in my hand. So yeah, I'm up to 10 cards here, even with the 2 pile. So I go ahead and just play the Strip Mine and then cast Guild of the Lotus because I've got that for Counterspell. This sets me up really nicely, and suddenly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. Suddenly, it's as if I was the one with the Soul Ring. While he had the Soul Ring, he was 2 mana ahead by playing the Lotus in my land. I'm now 2 mana ahead, and it's like we've flipped the mana situation 180 degrees, So now he does not go for sword, which I was really glad of, because if he went for sword and I countered it, strong possibility he counters back. But he goes for Consuming Aberration, and I go ahead and counter that, and I was very happy to see he went for a big spell there. So he just hits me for 3. And if you're wondering why he hasn't equipped boots, it's because he has that sword in his hand. This guy's hexproof anyway. So he didn't equip an attack last turn because this thing gives Shroud, not hexproof. And then he wouldn't be able to equip his sword until he got a second creature into play. Anyway, so I get a Crucible of Worlds, activate my Strip Mine, cast my Crucible, and Strip Mine again so that he has no black. And suddenly, like 8 mana to 4, I've doubled my mana first relative to his, and in the face of that he gives up. He knows I have the Cryptic Command in my hand, so it's totally amazing. I mean, he's got a 3/3 that I can't do anything about. He's got sword, he got the Soul Ring, not me, and he totally gives up. So it was a really cool game. Another game where I would have loved to have just top decked Amnesia and just completely broke him off there, but Crucible certainly works. So here I've got the nuts. And I don't know, did I win the roll? Let's see. Oh, and I'm going first too, yeah. And it gets even better. I draw Power Stone. So let's look at how this is going to develop. Underground, Crypt, right? Crypt into Vault. Okay, so Vault comes down, or I have 1 floating. So Vault and the Underground makes Lotus. Lotus taps for 3, which makes Copy Artifact on the Lotus, leaving 1 mana floating. And then I tap for 3 more and cast Worn Power Stone. Don't even spend that extra mana. Say go, and then next turn, Isochron with Memory Lapse. Oh, next turn I get to cast my commander and Isochron with Memory Lapse on turn 2. Before I can even finish the turn 1, he gives up. Like, that turn 1 is so good, so like completely outrageous, that he just totally gives up, and I absolutely love it. I mean, I haven't even finished the awesome. I still have 5 more mana that I'm going to put into play. At the end of this turn, I would add 2, 5, 8, 10, 11 mana in play, plus up at 3 more potential, up to 14 mana. 14 total mana in play on turn 1, and unlimited counterspells on turn 2. And here you see Memory Lapse. This is exactly why I said I pulled Condescend instead of Lapse, because of the interaction with Scepter, the chance that this exact scenario could come up here, where Condescend would dig, but Lapse just wins. So anyway, moving on. that was just like I just love hands like that. So here I'm playing against Soko. He played me earlier, and I think he wanted a rematch. He's the guy playing the Sharam deck, but my hand is outrageous once again. However, not nearly as outrageous as it was before. It has a slow wind up. So I win the roll, and I'm going first, and I'm like, come on, top deck a land, because I'm keeping a 0 lander, right? I do not draw a land, but I have my map, so I'm good. All I need is for him not to go land disenchant or something like that, right? So I draw for the turn, and not a land again. So I sack my map, and I go fetch shop. Play my shop, and think about sculpting stealing the crypt, because that would give me some insurance policy. If he has a disenchant or a wasteland or a strip mine, I'm in a lot of trouble right here, or seal of cleansing. So any of that is really bad for me. But if he doesn't, I'm almost certainly going to win the game. So because of that, I decide I'm not going to go with the safe play and play Sculpting Steel on the crypt. I'm going to go with the dominant play next turn, and just say go here and take my chances. He plays Aethersworn Canonist. So worthless against me. So here we go. 5 mana. Lotus. Where is it? Oh no. Are we glitching out? You're kidding me. Yeah, I thought I drew a land, not Mystical Tutor. That is awful. Anyway, some of this is off, but yeah, I had a land here. I drew a land there. So I had like 6 mana. So I play Gilded Lotus, leaving 4, and then I Sculpting Steel it, and then I play Well of Lost Dreams and I say go. And then next turn I have double Gilded Lotus, Crypt, activate the well, draw 2, and a shop, and I'm able to play Staff of and the next turn I'm able to dump truck his hand with amnesia there. So yeah, completely insane. We're gonna glitch out. I actually think that, yeah, turn 3. I think that what happens here is my opponent doesn't even wait for me to finish. Like I puke out mana, so much mana this turn. He just flat out gives up. He doesn't even let me amnesia him. So that is acceptable. And finally have an Oloro on Oloro mirror match. And this was another older version where I have Condescend and not Amnesia. And it's so funny because like you look at this game here, and Condescend looks really good because it's in my opening hand. But at the same time, 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got a lot of mana, and in Amnesia, I've got Disruption too, and Amnesia certainly would not suck either. So it's kind of funny. And then look, even more Disruption. So he plays Dimer Signet, and I go ahead and just say go. I don't seal it because I want to play end of turn. Since I did have the Condescend, I want to play end of turn Disenchant. So I do that. He brainstorms in response, lets it go, and so I'm able to go ahead and just cast Chalice and Seal. He has no play. I draw and then cast Fabricate, which resolves thankfully, so I go ahead and throw down Crypt. And just like that, I would have Amnesia ready to go. But I've got Condescend. And you see how I'm playing around the fact that I have it, and I'm not using it at all. So, oh well. So go ahead and Imperial Seal. And what do you get here? I mean, if you're me, what do you go get? Give you a quick second to look. Maybe you have some ideas. Let's see what I got. Mystical Teachings. Like I said, it's one of the top cards to search for. So he goes ahead and casts Merciless Eviction. Exile all artifacts. That's probably not too good for me, since that will put us even on mana. I don't want that to happen. So here I get to Condescend for 1. But first I Mystical Teachings. Then I Condescend for 1, so that I can scry, take advantage of the scry. But I end up basically putting the cards in the same order. I ship the Isochron to the bottom, and I put the Mystical Tutor, or the Enlightened Tutor on top of the deck. But it was already on top of the deck, so in this case the Scry didn't really help me because after I cast it, it's going to shuffle anyway. So I go ahead and play Jace into Winter Orb. And I really, so here's the thing. I was like, I want an Orb here. I played the Jace, and I thought about Enlightened Tutoring for Orb, and then activating Jace and hoping that one of the, I knew the top card would be Orb, but one of the other two cards was a land, and I'd be able to go, Winter Orb this turn. But I decided I wasn't going to do that. I was going to Jace and then use Enlightened Tutor at the end of his turn because the odds of hitting the land there were, too low to risk doing that play and telegraphing, and by holding Enlightened Tutor and having it as a response to whatever he did, I'd have more flexibility. I mean, considering that I already have a Seal Cleansing, there's only a few things that he could do that'd be really awful. But I totally luck out, and Jace just raw dog the Winter Orb like off of the Jace, and don't even need to search. And boom, down comes the Orb, and that's it. I think he's gonna give up. Yeah, he ponders. I don't see him sticking around too much longer. So during upkeep, yeah, I Enlightened Tutor and he scoops. So kind of an amazing game there, just in the way that, it went from him attempting to kill all of my artifact mana to suddenly losing the game. This is definitely an interesting card. I mean, I guess it's one of the only ways to mass kill artifacts, but the fact that it kills all of mine too, and the fact that it's 6 mana sorcery, for me makes it pretty well unplayable. Yeah, if it exiled 6 mana, it would need to exile your choice of what your opponent controls only for me to really consider it. Like Vandal Blast at 5 mana kills all artifacts your opponents control only. I mean, for 1 more mana, I get to Rift, and I'll just stick with that. So, again, here's the deck list. This was a longer video than I thought, but had a lot of interesting games. Hopefully, fun for you to watch, and I do appreciate you watching these games, and thank you for that. And I'll see you next time. Have a good night.